A pleasure to have at the desk with me Bill Cassidy. And how are you addressed a lot? Is it Representative Cassidy? Is it Dr. Cassidy along the way?
Well, the simple answer is, what do you want me for? But but in reality, I actually prefer just to call me Bill. Earlier, you introduced me as Billy. My wife calls me Billy. So if somebody knows me from high school, in fact, I'm thinking, man, Stan know me from high school? Because all my friends from high school call me Billy. But at some point along the way, I became Bill.
I have to apologize for that. Let me tell you
no,
what
you're not going
happened.
to apologize, man. I kind of like it.
Oh, good.
Makes me think I'm 18 again.
I'm saying it, and as I'm saying it, we go to a commercial break, and Josh is our floor guy here, and Josh is always the one who has to hear me go, what did I just say? And I turned to Josh at the break and said, did I just say Billy? You know, like... I apologize if that offended you.
No, you got to be kidding.
Anyway.
Actually, again, that's what my wife calls me, my mother, and my best friends. And so I always know somebody who knew me from when I was younger.
Very good. We're very fortunate. Jason, our producer, has, I think if you'd have that ready, Jason, you could show it, a map of the different districts. And you could kind of see there now, for you folks who are not real familiar with the map of Terrebonne Parish, we're down at the bottom, and to the right, you see the upper part of Lafourche Parish, and then the break in it there. Now, and correct me if I'm wrong, that light green area is you, right? You go right up the Highway 1 area, and if you can, talk a little bit about how it goes from right to left or left to right, as it may be, up towards the Baton Rouge area.
Before I refer to the map, let me let everybody just think of the state of Louisiana looking like a boot. In New Orleans, there is what is called the Voting Rights District, or it is a predominantly African-American district that goes from New Orleans all the way up the west side of the river to Baton Rouge, taking about 150,000 voters out of, and here you can see on this map, it kind of goes just, I don't know, like somebody lying down on a couch. Goes from New Orleans all the way up the west side of the river to Baton Rouge. Now, you see that light green surrounding it, that's the 6th Congressional District, which goes down to St. Charles Parish on the east side of the river, up through Livingston, St. Helena, East Feliciana, East Baton Rouge, Ascension, over onto the west side of the river, coming down from Point Capee, West Baton Rouge, Iberville, and then into the Lafourche, Assumption, and the Lafourche Terrebonne area. So that is the new 6th Congressional District. Jeff Landry, who represents this area currently, and Charlie Bustani are, if you will, in that southwest portion of the state right there. And that bright yellow is District 1, which is Steve Scalise, and he will represent the lower half of the Lafourche Terrebonne area.
We do have viewers over in St. Mary Parish, and I was going to make the comment, but it would have been very wrong if I would have said that nobody in our viewing area, you know, has Jeff Landry anymore, but that's not true, because obviously over in St. Mary Parish you're still concerned with Mr. Landry. I find it interesting, and pardon my ignorance on this, but the top of the Florida parish is up there, kind of, it runs that rim, that light blue, or I'm not quite mauve color, right there, and then all of a sudden it joins again with the northern part of the state, right? Is there a population thing that went with that, or?
I can tell you're an art teacher because you called it mauve. I would never call it mauve. The Louisiana's had tremendous population growth along the I-10 corridor. In the northern part of the parish, there's been population loss, particularly in that northeast portion. So the problem is that we now have 6 congressmen, but about 3/7 of the population lives north of I-10. And the real tension in the redistricting was, how do you divide 6 into 7, if you will? And so we ended up with something that looks very awkward, that mauve district that kind of starts in Monroe, goes west down to Alexandria, and then all the way over to Washington Parish. That was the compromise that came out at the very end.
Very good. The Terrebonne Parish, for you folks who could see this, and I think this map's a little bit better, Jason, as far as seeing everything. Obviously, with the bottom part of Terrebonne Parish being least populated, in our particular viewing area, you are the very heavily populated area, with the mid part of Houma going up, which is very populated, and of course Thibodaux right up there, and then we go right up along Napoleonville and the Assumption parishes there as you go up towards Baton Rouge. But again, the yellow area is going to be with, I assume, barring He does not run again. Steve Scalise is over there in that yellow area. And if I'm not mistaken, it's Cedric Richardson.
Cedric Richmond is in that
a
blue area that starts in New Orleans and again goes up on the west side of the river predominantly into the Baton Rouge area.
Very good, very good. You mentioned a little bit earlier, and I just want to go over this real quick so that our viewers know a little bit of a history. In 2008 was the first time you ran for this particular position and won 48% of the vote. And if we didn't mention it, you are of the Republican Party. I'm not quite sure that was mentioned. Defeating Don Casio, 48%, 40%, and Michael Jackson. No, don't even, not that Michael Jackson. Okay. And then in 2010, absolutely no problem, 66% of the vote as you defeated Merritt McDonald. And like I said, it's just names we don't hear on a regular basis as we're worried about, you know, what's going on down here as far as everything that was happening with Jeff Landry and such. But since your appointment, is it a situation now, you talked about what you do in the medical field and teaching. Has it been a good balance? Has it been something that you expected that you were going to be able to carry on with the entire time? Has it been tough? Are there things that you had to give and take along the way?
In terms of what,
In terms of working at Earl K. Long, in terms of still teaching and things like that?
Yeah, I teach now far less than I used to, 1 or 2 days a week. But that's really a nice thing because the people I meet at Earl K. Long are typically patients who would never meet their congressman. And when I walk in to see, and I have a young doctor with me because it's a teaching environment, I don't ever mention that I'm a congressman till the very end, and I teach, and sometimes they know me, and they're, oh, Dr. Cassidy, how are you? But sometimes they don't. And then at the end, I'll give them my card. I'll say, if I can ever serve you, please, this is how you contact me. And I want them to know that, that I, their congressman, am there to serve. I'm not high and mighty. I am there to serve. And that's just a way to bring that message to folks who otherwise probably wouldn't run into their congressman. It's very good.
Very good. A couple of committees that you serve on, if you will, expand on that a little bit. You're on the subcommittee for health. What is that?
I'm on the Energy and Commerce Committee overall.
Overall.
Okay.
Okay.
Now that is, Billy Tozan was the chair of that committee way back when. Billy Tozan was a very successful congressman. When I got elected 3 years ago, Billy Tozan was one of those who I thought to myself, if I can be as successful as Tozan, I will be able to do a good job for my district and for my state, for my country. So I'm now on that committee, and that was our goal to get there. On that committee, I'm on the health subcommittee. There are some major hospitals in this region, as there are in the district I currently represent. The health care bill, Obamacare, which I oppose, is going to be one of the things we consider in that committee. Second, I'm on the environment and the economy, which is very important because all the oil and gas that is produced here goes for the petrochemical plants all up and down the Mississippi River. Our economy, if you will, is fueled by the oil and gas that is found offshore of coastal Louisiana. So that gives me a good committee to advocate there. And then I'm on commerce, manufacturing, and trade. You know, South Louisiana has 3 of the 10 largest ports in the country. That's people don't think about that, but we have 3 of the 10 largest ports in the country. And so that is another subcommittee where I can kind of address the issues of trade.
So getting on these committees was not just a there was a purpose to this.
As
far as relation to both what you've done in the health field and, of course, what our state has to offer.
Yeah, it's my goal as a guy who's kind of going into a second career, if you will, is to be have as much impact as possible as I can for my district, my state, and my country. And this just seemed the committee that would allow me to do so.
I'll ask you to expand on this. You mentioned this just a little while ago. You are an opponent of the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act. Talk a little bit about that.
You know,
especially, you know, there are guys who are going to come up here and they're going to talk about their political background without having that medical background that you have. So just in general, I'm going to sit here and listen because you've been through that. You've taught it. You've worked in it. I'm very curious to hear your point of view on this.
There are 3 goals with health care reform. You want to have affordable, quality health care for as many people as possible. Access, quality, and cost. Okay. If you don't control cost, the other two get sacrificed. Now, Obamacare does not control cost. It raises taxes by $500 billion. It takes $500 billion from Medicare. It forces states to expand Medicaid, which is a federal state program, which states are going bankrupt from. And somehow it's supposed to still ensure quality and cost. I work in a public hospital and have for 20 years. At Earl K. Long, as at all the public hospital, there are dedicated nurses, doctors, med techs, and therapists. But if there's not enough money, the lines get longer. If there's not enough money, you don't have the same access to test that a sick patient may need. That's just my experience. Obamacare doesn't control cost. That means, inevitably, lines are going to go longer and quality will suffer. That's not the kind of reform that Americans want.
Very good. H.R. 2, you voted to repeal. Talk a little bit about that. And what is the status of everything right now?
Well, it's I did vote to repeal Obamacare, but clearly the Senate doesn't have to take it up, and the president can veto it. But what happened in the last election, among the things, is that the American people said, we don't like Obamacare. We don't like the deficit. We want to see the debt addressed, and we don't like Obamacare. Those are two things that came out loud and clear. So first thing we did, we sent a message. To the degree that we can, we're going to try and change Obamacare to something the American people want. So we voted against it kind of as a block, and now we're working to take out those portions which are the worst. There was one thing called the 1099 form where small businesses were just being swamped by paperwork. And it was so costly to comply with the paperwork requirements, they couldn't hire more people. All their time and energy was going to paperwork. So the president at first objected, but the American people just demanded to be heard, and now that provision is gone. We're trying to do that to some of the other things that are particularly bad.
Very good, very good. Got to take another commercial break. When we come back, I want to talk about something that you introduced, the Job Creation and Energy Security Act, and we'll talk about a few other things. Got a lot of time left. Till the top of the hour, we are going to have Representative Bill Cassidy. Stay tuned, everybody.